When LEGO and Minecraft teamed up to start making official LEGO Minecraft sets, I was immediately hooked. It wasn't long before I decided I was going to start a crazy project. A LEGO Minecraft world that looked as if it had been pulled straight out of the game. When I began, I had no idea what I was getting into. Over the next 3.5 years, my humble LEGO Minecraft dreams would transform into the largest and most expensive LEGO Minecraft creation ever made. This is the story of the LEGO Minecraft world. When I started the project, I was broke, so I was going to have to start small. A desert well seemed like the perfect choice. It made sense to start the series off with some sort of recognizable structure rather than just a flat piece of terrain. And the desert biome made the most sense as I owned a ton of tan parts, and I would even likely have enough 2x2 tiles to smooth the entire build off. The 2x2 tile is perhaps the most important piece of this entire puzzle. It's what elevates a creation from a LEGO build to a Minecraft build. Get used to this piece, you'll be seeing plenty of it. The palette for desert builds is pretty simple. You got a pure tan block for sand, and sprinkle in some pips for some texture, and you've got sandstone. The only tricky block would be the cactus. The official design that LEGO was using at the time for their sets left a bit to be desired. The brackets give it all a nice texture, but the design ends up being significantly larger than a single block, and the different heights of each side always frustrated me a bit. I developed this cactus that uses green krill tiles instead, but eventually I'd replace it with this 1x2 rail design. And now LEGO uses a different official design altogether, so yeah, there's plenty of options to choose from. The wall structure actually featured some pretty interesting techniques to accomplish all the detail and smoothness I wanted in a rather confined space. A slab, of course, is simply half a block, but would have to be built sideways. The rest of the wall would also go on to be built sideways, which made smoothing off the canopy extremely easy. I left Technic pinholes all around the base of the model too, which ended up being some crazy foreshadowing. There was going to be a lot more modules to come. Next up was the bamboo jungle. With much of my tan collection depleted, it was time to move on to a drastically different biome. I've always loved jungles in game, and I figured it would translate pretty well into LEGO form. The palette would be a bit more varied this time, with dirt blocks, grass blocks, bamboo, melons, and leaves. One of my favorite things about building this module was all the different green colors I got to use. Regular green for the leaves and vines, yellowish green and lime for the bamboo, and then bright green for the grass. LEGO actually makes enough different green colors that I would be able to represent a bunch of different biomes in LEGO greens. Bright green would represent the jungle and cherry blossom biomes, sand green would be perfect for the colder biomes, olive green would look great as the savanna, dark green would be the swamp and dark oak forest, and regular old green would be pretty much anything else. The jungle was a perfect place to display a bunch of mobs like pandas, parrots, and ocelots. Now, jungles and deserts certainly can spawn next to each other in-game, but I wanted to make that transition a bit smoother, so I introduced another 8x8 block module to help blend the two very different biomes together. For the next module, I wanted to do something big. A village. And now, no proper village was going to fit on a 16x16 stud baseplate, so it was time to go crazy with this one. It made sense to start with the most iconic village, a Plains village, especially since I had only Plains villagers at the time. As far as I was concerned, the blacksmith was a must. It's still the first structure I look for when I stumble upon a village. The other would be a generic house to give the blacksmith a nice place to live. It was here that one of the Minecraft world's craziest techniques was born. The bracket path indentation, accomplished by using a sideways bracket to let the path sink half a plate into the ground. It was definitely overly complicated, but so worth it. The buildings have full interior and the blacksmith's lava pit even lights up, or at least it used to 3 years ago. The village became something of a turning point for the series. People started to get very interested in what was going on in the LEGO Minecraft world. Suggestions started pouring in, and I started to realize that the world was going to get a lot, and I mean a lot, bigger. Over the next months, I began pumping out new modules like crazy. The fourth module would be the first lush cave biome added to the display. At the time, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to handle caves yet, so I ended up putting it beneath the desert well. From there, I made some modifications to the jungle transition to create a smooth, natural cave entrance there. And for the scale of the model at the time, it worked quite well. But when the Deep Dark update was introduced to Minecraft, I realized there were going to be a lot more caves I would like to add. And so from that point on, I made the decision that the entire world would have an underground layer. It was an ambitious goal that would change the entire course of the project, and the Deep Dark module would set the blueprint for the whole thing. I settled on the module being 13 in-game blocks tall. It gave me just enough height to feel grand, but not so much that it would entirely break the bank. The Deep Dark module was a parts-intensive build, featuring more texturing than had ever been included in any of the previous modules. The effect seemed well worth the effort though, and I realized that this underground layer would really bring the mine to the Minecraft world. And of course, I couldn't make a Deep Dark without a warden. The next underground module would be the Dripstone Caves, complete with an abandoned mineshaft running through it. It was a pretty big module, being 24 blocks long. The extra room gave me lots of opportunities for little details, like the water puddles on the floor of the cave, plenty of ores in the wall, and even a suspended mineshaft bridge. The LEGO Minecraft world would end up being rectangular, so I needed 4 underground corner modules, and a cross-section of an amethyst geode seemed perfect for the task. Small geodes fit rather nicely within the 13 block height I had established for underground modules, so it really was meant to be. To allow the geode to sparkle, I used a whole host of transparent purple cheese slopes. The effect is quite mesmerizing. The underground layer wouldn't be exclusively underground, but the added depth would also allow for an underwater scene. Oceans are one of the most exciting and vibrant places in the game, and I certainly wanted to bring that magic into this display. I ended up making 2 massive underwater modules, totaling 2.5 chunks of surface area. It started with an underwater ruined portal build. These builds would prove to be a nice reprieve from all the grays and browns that are found elsewhere in the underground. Kelp and seagrass would dominate the space, yet the portal still stands out nicely against all the noise with its darker colors. For the second module, a coral reef was pretty much inevitable. Among the coral plants, you'll find some ancient ruins as well, infested with drowned zombies. My favorite detail here is the trident wall, where a drowned continues to barely miss a fleeing player. The 2 modules connect smoothly together, leaving room for an island between them. You'll see what's gonna go there soon enough. The next underground module was quite ambitious. I wanted to make a Minecraft ravine that split the display all the way from the base to the surface above. I covered the base of the ravine in lava that actually lights up, and as I built up the walls, I had a few mineshaft bridges pass through it. Mineshaft ravines just seem like a core part of the Minecraft experience. I certainly remember dying there a lot. And as always, there's plenty of ores to be mined throughout this module. At the surface, I chose to build a flower forest to get some classic Minecraft trees added into the display. And it's here that I brought out one of my favorite techniques to make the tulips. Up until this point, all the cave modules had been pretty specialized. I wanted to do something a bit more standard and generic, honestly, something a little more true to the earliest versions of the game. So this was going to be a cave that wasn't a distinct biome. Again, it was going to be a fairly large module matching the Dripstone Cave in size. I was able to add a really fun scene into this one with the player digging straight down and dying of fall damage. The left side of the caves feature yet another mineshaft. You can probably see that I really like adding these to the world, and that actually intersects with the one that travels through the ravine. You can see where things are coming together here. It wouldn't make sense for every single underground module to have a cave, so I also made some filler modules. My favorite of these is this one, where 99% of players quit just before making it big. These really help to move the project along, and there's only a few gaps left to fill. By popular demand, a small trial chamber was next on my to-do list. The build features a dangerous hallway, which I originally filled with custom bog skeletons, but I'd swapped them out for breezes when LEGO released them in an official set. The module makes use of some pretty crazy techniques to accomplish the various textures found in the structure, especially when it comes to the copper grates, made up of dark orange grill tiles. I then decided to revisit the Dripstone Caves to make another underground corner module. This would be a direct expansion to that previous build. It didn't end up being anything crazy, but I'm quite happy with all the detail I managed to capture in a relatively small space. There's an abundance of ores to mine in this one. Now, if you remember way back to the beginning of this underground saga, I had built a lush cave that was sort of not an official underground module. It felt like it was time to properly revisit that and get it added into the caves below, in the underground layer. I'd be making 2 modules here again, starting with a dungeon spotter hidden away among the vines. This module was directly inspired by one of my favorite LEGO Minecraft sets, the Skeleton Dungeon. For the module, I decided to spice up the vines and make them much more detailed than before. This technique also allowed for glowberries to be added in much more easily. The second Lush Cave expansion would be double the size of the dungeon module. I barely resisted the urge to put another mineshaft in here too, but instead I just made it a sprawling cave with lots of ponds, ores, mobs, and greenery. The end result is pretty impressive. These 2 modules form the third corner of the underground. There was one last underground biome I wanted to return to, and that was the Deep Dark. In the original module, I had included part of an ancient city, but this time I wanted to go all out with the huge portal statue. I began by modifying that original module to make it into the final corner of the underground. From there, I laid out the foundation of what would be one of the largest modules to date. Even with all this space, in-game ancient city structures are just way too absurdly massive, and I'd have to downsize everything a bit to make sure that it would fit. The scale down, honestly though, went quite smoothly, and the portal ended up looking quite convincing as the real thing. Even then, it still ended up being too tall. But I had an idea for how to remedy that. We'll get back to that soon enough. The underground was now filled with quite the variety of cave biomes and underground structures. As far as I was concerned, there was only one blatant omission: the stronghold. How could I have a LEGO Minecraft world without a means to the end? So my final 2 underground modules would be rooms for that structure, a library and a portal room. I was happy to find that even a 2-level library would fit within my 13-block height limit, so I set to work creating as many bookshelves as I possibly could. Here I use this Spider-Man web accessory for the cobwebs, and that effect works quite well. Off to the left side of the module is a cave that will allow players access down here from the surface. I really wanted to go all out on the portal room, once again adding glowing lava and other lights into the space. With all the underground modules connected together, I think this gives you a pretty good idea of just how many surface modules we're going to have to make to fill this space in. For the middle bit, I'm not doing anything too fancy here. I found these school crates at Walmart for about $1.50 a piece, and they just so happen to be the perfect height. I'll lay down some insulation foam on top of them, and we more or less have a perfect flat surface to start adding the surface to. I suppose the unspoken goal of the overworld was to add basically every biome in the game. The world will have a warm side, a temperate middle, and then work its way over to the cold side on the right. I'm going to start by adding the modules in the middle and working my way out toward the edges. And first up, I've got the plains biome. On the surface, this might appear to be one of the least interesting modules in the entire display, but it holds a peculiar and random secret. You can punch out the middle, leaving behind the shape of Ohio. Don't ask, this was relevant when I made it 2 years ago. There's a couple of transition modules that will attach to this one, like this tiny creeper crater. You can pull out a chunk of terrain to leave behind a creeper explosion. On the other side, I can add this small pond module, complete with some sugarcane. Above that will actually be a small expansion of the Plains village I made way back at the beginning of this video. One of the key things missing from that village was some farmland, so this module aims to remedy that. It also brings some lovely color to the plains with these sunflowers. And with that module installed, I can now connect the larger Plains village. It's certainly starting to feel a bit more lived in, but I've got one last expansion to add here too. This section introduces a classic well, along with another village house. Connected to the plains biome, I'm going to make a swamp. Swamps are such an underrated biome. You slap some shaders over this in game and it's quite beautiful. For that reason, I think it's going to translate really well into LEGO. To help give the water a greener hue, I've decided to use green plates beneath the surface. LEGO Dots tiles become perfect for lily pads dotted around the water. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be differentiating the grass color here by using dark green. And you can't have a swamp without a witch hut. It's a tricky build because it's all one singular color. To give it some pizzazz, I'll be using a lot of different textures on it to represent different blocks. I'm really happy with the final result, and it's got a complete interior too. This module ends up being filled with rare figures: the witch, exclusive to the old witch hut set, the large slime, exclusive to the massive mountain cave, and then the black cat from the pumpkin farm set. I really love the variety of greens and rich colors here. To the right of the swamp, I'm going to add a dark oak forest. The two biomes actually share a lot in common, so I feel it makes sense to connect them here. This module will also be quite substantial, taking up a chunk's worth of space, and while the swamp was pretty flat, the dark oak forest is going to focus a lot more on terrain. One of my favorite Minecraft terrain features are the surface arches and cliffs that sometimes generate within hilly forest biomes. This feels like the perfect place to add such a feature. It makes for a complicated build, but it ends up translating really well into Lego. Next up, I'll add some trees and of course the giant mushrooms. This module is quite dense, just like the actual in-game biome, and it's definitely one of my favorite builds so far. The height just adds so much visual interest, and I think this module could even stand really well on its own. But it sure doesn't have to stand alone because we've got way more modules to build. This is one of the simplest and silliest in the display, but I always wanted to add Herobrine to the world somehow, and what better way to bring him here than with a Herobrine summoning shrine? Oh dear, the LEGO Minecraft world will never be safe again. I'm obsessed with Minecraft villages, and I want to add at least a small piece of each variant into the world. I plan for the most expansive of these to be the desert village though. You heard that right, that means it'll be even bigger than the already quite large plains village. The desert village will be constructed on two separate 1.5 chunk modules. That'll give us tons of room to add a variety of structures, like the marketplace meeting point. I'll also be adding a small desert house, once again complete with a full interior. The highlight of this module though will be the apartment block, one of my all-time favorite Minecraft structures. I love all the levels and personality built into this small space. The village really starts to come to life when adding some minifigures. A personal favorite of mine is this clueless purple ninja. But don't worry, we're not done yet. I'm doubling the size with another module. For starters, I'll finish off the meeting area by adding a small well. Next to it, I'll add an iconic village pile of hay bales. These are so great to stumble upon when you're starving after a long travel session. There's room for two more small buildings. The first is another medium-sized house, and the second is the desert shepherd house. I built this long before LEGO released their loom design, so I had to come up with my own custom solution. It's a bit complex, but turned out pretty great. Bringing these two modules together, I now have plenty of space to play out a pillager raid, complete with this custom Ravager. I've got a tutorial featured on my channel if you'd like to make your own too. The next module I want to add is going to be a big one. I'm going to be building the Jungle Temple to serve as an expansion of the bamboo forest we made back at the beginning. This is going to involve some significant modifications to the existing jungle, merging everything into one singular, massive, chunk-and-a-half mega module. To be visible across the world, I've decided to build the temple up on a small cliff. This will allow me to hide the basement and secret treasures beneath it as well. I'll also expand the surface lush cave backwards. I figure I might as well since I have the room to do so. For the treasure room, I'm going to recreate the Jungle Temple's passcode lock in the basement. It's a rather complex Technic mechanism that actually functions as an effective lock. Get the combination right, and the door opens. Get it wrong, and well, I guess you can just mine through the wall like everybody else. I want to add another big jungle tree up top to make this feel like a proper forest. It's firmly connected into the ground with Technic pieces, so that'll be nearly impossible to knock over. Next, I'll lay the foundation for the temple. The build will be filled with all sorts of fun textures for cobblestone and mossy cobblestone, and there'll be plenty of vines covering everything too. The finished structure is an exact recreation of the real thing. No downsizing necessary here. The module will go back behind the desert village. Now you can kind of see what that desert hill was for. Perhaps you noticed a bit of mud on the far end of the desert village. You better believe that that will be connecting to a mangrove swamp. The terrain bears a lot of similarities to the regular swamp, but the trees couldn't be more different. There's some of the most complex things in the entirety of Minecraft to create. I wanted the roots to be as chaotic as they are in the game, so I used a variety of different shapes to fill them with texture. The two trees I'm building on this half-chunk module are indeed taken directly from the game, so you could technically find these on your very own survival world. It's a real testament to LEGO clutch power that they can stand up with just their single block trunks. The complete completed module connects in front of the desert village, right next to the swamp. I figured it made sense for those two swamps to be nearby each other. I told you I liked villages. Unfortunately though, LEGO might not like them as much because they've never somehow made an official Taiga villager variant, but at least there was a set with a Taiga zombie villager. So I'm gonna hop over to the cold side of the display to add a small abandoned Taiga village structure. Beside it, I'll add in this ice bike and a floating tree that a player has halfway cut down. I like the idea that a player has tried to repair the old abandoned village structure, so I'll replace some of the holes with random blocks like dirt, cobblestone, and wood planks. I'll also add in another half chunk module, but leave this one pretty open to give the display some much needed breathing room. Some of these modules are quite busy, I'll admit it, but I just want to be able to add as many structures as possible here. They're really fun to build. These two new modules will attach right next to the rest of the plains builds. And not far from that abandoned village, there's room for a nice little cherry blossom grove. Since you'll find cherry blossom groves up hills or near mountains, I definitely want to elevate the terrain a bit here. I'll do that by adding a cave beneath the grove. This cave will eventually connect to the stronghold. The grass here will be bright green just like the jungle, and I'll scatter flower petals all over the ground. Building the tree reminds me of the mangroves in terms of size and complexity. Once again, this design is taken directly from the game to make it as authentic as possible. It's bonkers massive. Never have I ever used so many pink bricks. My custom sniffer design feels like a perfect fit for this peaceful place. I've got a tutorial for this guy too if you're interested. This module goes on the opposite side of the Plains Village, but don't worry, we're not done yet. A single tree, even if it is massive, feels like a pretty weak showing for a forest, so I wanted to add in another cherry module. This build extends the cave in the back, opening to a wide cavern. The ground is once again covered in petals and that lovely bright green grass color. I was able to fit one more large tree on top here, and now it feels at least a bit more like a forest. The two trees certainly look lovely together. The second module also hides some torch flowers and pitcher plants. Things are getting proper chilly now on the cold side of the display. The next biome to be added to the world is the snowy taiga forest built atop a half chunk module. Here I'll be using sand green to represent the cold faded grass. Even though the trees are pretty big, I can still fit two rather easily on this half chunk. And there's still plenty of room for other fun stuff like some berry bushes, the killer rabbit, and one of LEGO Minecraft's coolest figures, the stray. The module connects to the other side of the cherry grove. Another popular request was to add an old growth taiga, which is basically just the taiga forest on steroids. There's typically no snow in this biome though, so the terrain ends up looking a bit different. This biome has plenty of pods along the ground, which I made building sideways. Mossy cobblestone boulders are an iconic part of the biome, so I made sure to leave room for one of those too. Here I constructed two identical giant Christmas trees to put side by side in the back. Thankfully, their thick 2x2 block bases will make sure they will not fall over easily. This module is going to go right behind the snowy taiga, directly above the dripstone mineshaft corner module. But let's jump back over to the warm side of the display again. There's a lot of gaps to fill over here yet. I wanted to add one of my favorite biomes next, the Mesa Badlands. One of the first things that I feel is essential to add to this module is a mine shaft, since they spawn all over these biomes. It makes use of one of my favorite LEGO Minecraft techniques to create the rails. The gray terracotta will be made using an extremely rare LEGO color called sand red. It's the same color you've probably seen before in the underground, as I've used it to represent granite patches as well. Unfortunately, it's been retired since 2004, but I'll keep dreaming that LEGO will bring it back. The terrain has to be pretty tall to match the height of the elevated desert well, so I'm gonna keep building this one until I run out of dark orange bricks, layering in all sorts of different mesa colors as I go. The end result is quite striking, and I love the vibrance of the LEGO bricks compared to the actual in-game biome. I'll add in a wandering trader, bat, and a husk to this module. The module ends up being directly above the skeleton dungeon. We've officially stretched from one end of the world to the other. Ever wonder where those desert village raiders came from? Well, wonder no more, because next I'm building a massive full-size pillager outpost. This will easily be the largest single structure in the display, and the entire module will need to be a chunk and a half to accommodate this tower. It's primarily made up of cobblestone, dark oak logs represented in dark brown, and then birch planks represented in regular old tan. I was even able to get enough pillager banners to decorate every side of the tower. I'll keep the terrain pretty flat here so as not to overcomplicate things. Beneath the tower, there's a hidden Technoblade tribute too. The outpost we'll call the Savanna biome home, bringing in our last unique grass color, olive green. I want to add in some of the other outpost structures too beyond the tower, like the cage, and then some fun training dummy designs as well. This module will connect right next to the desert village. I have a feeling they're gonna get raided a lot. The addition of the outpost modules leaves a tiny gap between the savanna and the mangrove swamp, so I've made this small module to transition between the two biomes. It features our first acacia tree, but it probably won't be the display's last. Before we get to that second acacia tree though, there's another biome I'd like to expand, and that's the Badlands. It won't be as tall and dramatic as the first Badlands biome, but will rather help transition between those desert mountains and the flatter savanna plains. A few peaks in here gives me a lovely excuse to add more sand red though. And with all this extra space, I can even add another outpost structure. A small tent. It's a simple addition, but I think this small stretch of terrain adds a lot to the world. We're now working our way towards the ocean in the front of the display. The first module in that area that I want to tackle is the Savannah Beach. There's so much water to lay down here, and this hardly scratches the surface. We're going to have a lot more ocean builds coming after this if I want to cover all the underwater builds from earlier in the video. Since LEGO has made quite a variety of Savannah villagers, I want to at least add a taste of a Savannah village, even if there isn't a ton of room. I've decided to go with some simple farmland here, doing my best to recreate the chaotic layout of the Savannah village farms that you see in game. And a huge thank you to everyone who helped me buy the super expensive olive green grass stems for this module. They look spectacular. And it's here that I'll add that secondary acacia tree. This module goes right above the amethyst geode, and the water hangs over the underwater ruined portal below. Remember that island platform that was left behind in the ocean? That seems to be the perfect place for some mushroom fields. This module is going to need a ton of water. That's a lot of little 1x2 tiles. I want the terrain to be pretty dramatic here, so I'm adding a cliff on one side and then a flatter section for the mushrooms on the other. Though it's proven controversial in the past, I absolutely love the use of lavender to represent mycelium. There is no doubt that sand purple would have been the perfect fit, but unfortunately there's no 2x2 tiles in that color, or any tiles in that color for that matter. Just like the dark oak forest, I'll include one of each type of giant mushroom. This is just such a fun biome. It's whimsical and wacky, and I love the magic that it brings to the display. Alright, there's one last section of water to fill, and it's the biggest yet. This module will blend the ocean with the swamp to the north and the flower forest ravine to the east. But first, I need to lay down hundreds of transparent blue tiles. The build's main feature will be a buried shipwreck on the beach. The chunk and a half module provides lots of room for extra details like some sugarcane and another tree in the swamp, and then some new flowers in the forest as well. My favorite little scene is the bear-skinned player running from an angry horde of bees. And a beach like this wouldn't be complete without some turtles. LEGO has even made adorable baby turtles. With this added into the display, things are really starting to look nice here up front. Opposite the ravine will be a very simple module that will help transition into the colder biomes. There's nothing crazy going on in the build here, but it does include 2 vertical shafts that 2 cave explorers dug to get to the caverns below. And as you know, one wasn't quite so lucky. Don't dig straight down, kids. There's one last village I'd like to add, and I've got enough room to add a few different structures this time around. I'll be dividing this one into 2 different modules. The first will feature a village library and lots of paths to get villagers from place to place. In many ways, the snowy village structures are quite similar to the witch hut from earlier. They're made from all one color, so the challenge for the build becomes trying to give each block a distinct personality. I ended up using LEGO's retired old brown color to represent stripped spruce logs, and then I used masonry bricks to give the planks some texture. I really like the end result here. I'll also be building a small meeting area for this village. The second module will attach right behind the first, and it gives us room for even more structures. The first is going to be a small beetroot farm using the same color techniques from earlier, and on the opposite side of the road I've left room for another small house, once again complete with a cozy interior. The 2 modules end up on the other side of the Snowy Plains transition module, and with that, the front row of modules is complete. Now it's just about filling in those remaining gaps. This one chunk module will be a wool farm, featuring a pen filled with all different colors of sheep. Over the 11 years that the LEGO Minecraft theme has existed, the designers have continued to add as many different sheep colors as possible, and official LEGO versions exist for over half of the colors. All these special sheep deserve a nice place to live. There's a fun hidden room in the cliff at the back of this module. A secret sheep laboratory, and no, it is not that kind of sheep laboratory. Here you'll find a Jeb and a Dinnerbone sheep. This module will go in front of the dark oak forest. There's actually one last gap on the warm side of the display yet. This next module will go behind the Mesa Badlands, and it's here I want to build a cross-section of a desert pyramid. To start out, I'm going to expand the mine shaft below the Badlands to tunnel beneath the pyramid as well. This is a great excuse to add in some more ores, as well as a minecart chest. The other necessary underground addition is, of course, the treasure room for the pyramid, complete with the TNT explosion trap. Then there's just a lot of brick to build to reach the height of the surrounding modules. This section of the display is really tall. I'm going to try to pack as much detail as possible into the pyramid structure itself, giving the regular sandstone, cut sandstone, and chiseled sandstone all unique textures. Here's the finished model. But the thing I know you really want to see is the explosion in slow motion. With the warm side of the display completed, it's time to move over to the cold biomes again, and things are going to get absolutely frigid with the addition of the Ice Spikes biome. I want to include an igloo in this build, so I'll start by making one of those creepy villager dungeons. This will actually slide out of the main module to give you easier access. Building the Ice Spikes is pretty simple, it just takes a lot of that not too common medium blue color. The real challenge of the build ends up being the sheer amount of terrain that has to be built to cover up that basement. It's a lot of bricks. Another function that I want to add here is a snow golem spawn mechanism. It uses a trapdoor of sorts to turn a pile of snow into a snow golem. Pretty nifty, huh? With some tiles added on top, this module is good to go. I'll add it right in front of the snowy taiga. There's only a handful of gaps left to fill now, and this next simple module will quite literally lay the groundwork for one of the most exciting builds yet. The stairway will connect the wool farm to a massive player base. The player base was perhaps the most requested module throughout the course of the series, so I had to do this one justice. The base will be elevated on a cliff since all the surrounding modules are once again quite tall. In fact, the final module after this is going to be the tallest in the display. This section of the world blends quite a few different biomes together, so you'll see 3 different grass colors here. In the basement of this player house, I'm adding an enchanting area and some nice decorations. The second floor features a bed, a crafting table, and a row of blast furnaces. When it comes to the aesthetic of the house's exterior, I'm basing the design off of the Hypixel main lobby. If you've ever visited the Hypixel Minecraft server before, I imagine you'll find these orange roofs quite familiar. The front of the house can be hinged to gain access to the interior. The modules are starting to get a bit tricky to squeeze in now, but I think I made it work. And that leaves one final module. This is the mountain. I'm going to have to go about building this one a bit differently because if you remember from earlier, the ancient city below is just a bit too tall. So here I'm going to build the cave roof into the bottom of the mountain. The final effect should be pretty sweet. I'm leaving part of the mountain hollow to allow for a cave, and inside a player has attempted to spawn a wither. This is not going to end well. And then it's just about laying down a ton of bricks. The mountain fits perfectly into place, completing the LEGO Minecraft world once and for all. So there it is, all connected together. A huge thank you to the hundreds of people who crowdfunded this project to make it come to life. Those people are my incredible channel members. They're the reason I didn't have to bore you with an ad read for this video. If you want to see the creation of this world in a whole lot more detail, I have 50 in-depth episodes breaking down each module even further, and I'll be linking that in the description. There's even 5 Nether-themed episodes hidden in there. If you made it this far, thank you so much for hanging around. I've definitely got more LEGO Minecraft mocks coming in the future. But until then, I hope you have yourself a great life.